World building, the big kahuna of running TTRPGs. For many DMs, this is where the magic happens.
Maybe you're a writer at heart, and have always wanted to whip up a universe all your own outside of pre-existing setting guides.
Or maybe you're a lore nerd like us, and the prospect of designing the intricacies of an entire continent is an itch you want to scratch.
Or maybe you've just watched a lot of Dimension 20 and want to follow in Brennan Lee Mulligan's footsteps. Understandable. The man really knows how to make the world feel alive.
I solved your labyrinth, puzzle master! The Minotaurs escaped, and you're gonna get the horns, buddy!
But admittedly, it can be hard to know where to start on your journey as a world maker. After all, the choices are literally limitless, which can make starting feel impossible.
Sometimes, all you need to get going is the right inspiration.
Hello one and all, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Andrew.
Artsmith and wordsmith of the Mithril Canvas, where we make homebrew items, monsters, and more for you to use in your D&D 5th edition campaigns.
If you're a more experienced architect of worlds, you may already have a method that you've refined over the years to build from.
But for those new to the game, it's a daunting proposition, and one that many first-time DMs can stumble over as they put the cart before the horse by going overboard on the density of their worlds.
Or the prospect of having to make a whole new world can feel overwhelming, intimidating people before they can properly put pen to paper.
Many people feel like they need to come up with something wholly unique, stressing over making their world completely their own. But there is a skill to taking bits and pieces from other media and merging them together to build something new.
For example, many of our favorite Dimension 20 seasons are built upon familiar ground, but with the DM-specific flavor. Crown of Candy was pitched as Game of Thrones meets Candyland, Mentopolis is film noir Inside Out, and the Unsleeping City is literally New York, but with magic.
So before you start deep diving into making your own 63 god pantheon and how they affect the trade routes for all 13 kingdoms in your 37 seas, take a gander at what you personally love and see what you can borrow for your own worlds.
And to help spark some inspiration, we've got some personal recommendations for you all to check out.
There are a few universes that spring to mind as commonly desired by the player base: Pokemon, Avatar, Bloodborne, and many, many more.
But many in the homebrew community have already taken it on themselves to bring some of these to life, such as Heliana's Guide for the Monster Hunter lovers.
So today, we'd like to talk about some of our favorite fictional worlds to take inspiration from when building our own, or that could be made into D&D campaign worlds in their own right. Potential spoilers ahead, you have been warned.
Alright, look, I love this game. I've beaten it multiple times across PC, Switch, and on my mobile devices. I've drawn fan art for it. I've loved it since I got the early access back in, oh god, it's 2015. It's been 10 years. Okay, so you get the point. While there is much to be experienced by the gameplay, like the stress system and the combat skills, the lore of Darkest Dungeon has really kept my attention for years. And that serves as a great jumping off point for creating your own world. Darkest Dungeon has a lot of classic dark fantasy elements. Monsters from the deep, ruins teeming with skeletal warriors, and it's all wrapped in this eldritch candy coating with delicious narration from Wayne June, rest in peace, who speaks for your ancestor from ages past. Shameful confessions from the ancestor speak of a man driven by ambition, willing to exploit anything and everything in the pursuit of forbidden knowledge and power. The results of his misdeeds are what you must contend with across the land before journeying into the titular Darkest Dungeon to end what he started so many years ago. So there's a great in-universe reason as to why you specifically, the player, are here to right the wrongs of his mysterious past, and that can make for a good reason as to why your party has been gathered for this quest, whether they've been hired by a descendant or a party member is that descendant. Each region has its own twists and turns and gimmicks that you have to deal with repeated ventures into them required to advance the story as you clear out the abominations the ancestor has left in his wake. And if you're sick and tired of throwing skeletons and fishfolk at your players at a certain point, then have no fear. Red Hook Studios has really gone overboard and has you covered with an army of horrors to terrify your players. If you're a fan of dark fantasy and are drawn to an adventure that slowly unveils itself with each monster that your players defeat, I really can't recommend referencing Darkest Dungeon enough. I think it's pretty easy to see how an adventure could unravel from starting at a simple village, where your players must venture forth to battle all sorts of creatures in order to access the ancient and mysterious matter in the distance once they've acquired enough knowledge about the history of this wretched land. The hamlet that they reside in rewards them in kind as they spend more time there, making for a very easy home base for your players to invest time and money into. It's easy to imagine your players becoming drawn to the NPCs that run these facilities, like the sanatorium or the blacksmith, especially when misfortune striking those NPCs isn't just an in-universe contention, but also affects your players mechanically, because now they can't upgrade their weapons or they can't cure themselves of certain maladies. Or when some rat bastard with a wolf scarf comes to ransack your town and undo all your progress. I think you could even run a West Marches style campaign as multiple parties take on different dungeons and they collectively work towards a common goal. In game, you're supposed to be making new parties of heroes all the time to stay flexible, so swapping party members in and out fits right into the flavor of the world and could work with that sort of campaign if that's what interests you. And as fellow Darkest Dungeon players know, the game has a reputation for being incredibly punishing. And while some parties may welcome the sort of brutality that comes with conquering the Darkest Dungeon, be sure to vibe check your players before hitting them with the bear special.
Okay, please don't kill her! Oh my god!
We're certainly not the first people who wish to play the Darkest Dungeon in Dungeons & Dragons. Many other brave souls have taken on the task of converting things like the stress system and the in-game enemies for play. We've linked a few of these down below, but I personally would still love an official, full-on book dedicated to this setting. This is a game absolutely bursting with mood and atmosphere, in no small part due to Chris Barros' art direction and writing, which adds a Lovecraftian flavor to every aspect of the experience. I mean, just listen to this and tell me it doesn't make you want to just dive right into the world.
You remember our venerable house, opulent and imperial. It is a festering abomination. I beg you, return home, claim your birthright, and deliver our family from the ravenous, clutching shadows of the Darkest Dungeon.
And as your players work to repair the hamlet and undo the ancestors' sins, they will soon come to know the tragic extent of his failings. And that is when you must remind them that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
Hey, you're finally awake. This one is probably the most one-to-one translation for a TTRPG system. The Elder Scrolls is a series of games set in the world of Nirn, on the continent of Tamriel, the most popular of which is Skyrim, which you know is the most popular because it has had 7 distinct releases since 2011. These games are beloved by fans for their rich world, player agency, and their glitchy charm.
Farewell.
May you rest in peace.
The thing that draws most people into the world of Elder Scrolls is your ability to craft your own adventurer, using a loose perk-based leveling system that encourages creativity. The thing that makes people stay fans of the series is its encyclopedic lore, spanning millennia of history for the setting. Each game takes place in a completely different era of the world, dealing with whatever cataclysm must be stopped by a prisoner-turned-hero. The games are fun, but have slowly become more limited in player choices as they've progressed technologically. This has led to a community of talented modders adding more content to each installment. Nope, not those ones. The plethora of additional skills, player options, story content, and even full regions added to the games by players shows that there is so much more that this community wants to explore. The games have all taken place almost exclusively on a single continent of the world, so there's plenty more out there, which is why translating this world to D&D would be so appropriate. There is already a group of people interested in exploring the world of Nirn their way, interacting with it in ways no studio could ever hope to code into an open world video game. The DNA of similar fantasy settings is there, making it easy to translate into a TTRPG. You have several humanoid races, each with special abilities. Players tend to focus on a single archetype like a class before focusing on specifics, like a subclass. Or maybe you go nuts and homebrew a full branching perk system like the games themselves. There's even a pantheon of good and evil gods with the Aedra and the Daedra who grant boons and legendary items to those who do quests for them.
A new hand touches the beacon.
It all fits perfectly, almost like it's a system already built to be an RPG. Players could adventure in any time of Nirn's long history, fighting together to save the world from evil machinations. A Dragonborn? No, not that kind. Fighting alongside an Archmage and a Blade Champion to seal Alduin away during the Dragon War. Fighting against Molag Bal in the Second Era. The Elder Scrolls tell not one history, but many mutable ones, and many futures. You are free to make anything canon in your game. People are still waiting on the Elder Scrolls 6, so in the meantime, why not make your own story? And that's why I think the Elder Scrolls would make a great D&D setting. Too bad it would take so long to translate all that into a 5e compatible guide. Wait, somebody did it? Somebody already did it? That's right, in researching for this video, I discovered that there is an unofficial 5e based TTRPG adaptation of the Elder Scrolls series, created by Michael Bonar. This document translates each of the core races to 5e, adds new options to existing classes, and introduces new Elder Scrolls originals, and has expansions for several of the provinces found found in the games and beyond. Wow, that is a lot of work. But that's a lot of work already done for you, should you want to step into Tamriel and finally write your own story unrestricted by the bounds of a video game.
Alright, back to my neck of the woods. And it's a pretty drastic change in tone from Darkest Dungeon. I present to you, Okami. Okami, for those not in the know, is a game where you play as the sun goddess Amaterasu as you venture across a fictional and mythological version of classical Japan. Admittedly, a large part of what draws me to this world as a reference for D&D is definitely an aesthetic appeal. It's got a breathtakingly beautiful art style based on the Sumie ink paintings, and a soundtrack that just draws you right in as you venture across the land. But even setting aside the task of attempting to capture that vibe in a bottle, Okami is just a fantastic piece of storytelling to draw from. It's got so many pieces that a DM can take and adapt for their own campaigns. And if you're about to complain that it's quote just fantasy Japan, what's the problem? Standard Western fantasy already feels very European coded. Champagne and whiskey flow like France and Kentucky exist in every plane of the D&D universe. So I beg you to think outside of the Western hemisphere when building your worlds and see how many doors it opens. I'm sure drawing upon mythology is nothing new for many of you who are more experienced with world building, but Okami is still a fantastic reference for adapting myth and folklore to fit your designs. For example, turning the mythological figure Susanoo from a godly figure to one who struggles to live up to such expectations, reinterpreting the nine-tailed fox to make him more of a threat, and other aspects of the story are great examples of how to improve at building your worlds from the ground up. The story also features an original pantheon, ancient evils and prophesized heroes, celestial entities, and magical powers. So much of the work has already been done, with a lot of the building blocks already teed up for reinterpretation. While the realms already have their own pre-established pantheon of gods, the celestial brush gods of Okami are so fun to draw upon, each with their own charming personality while still being dedicated to the cause. Each has its own unique brush technique, which in-game allows you to attack or alter the world as you see fit. And since the celestial brush gods are based on the East Asian zodiac, there's one thing you gotta know about me, and it's that I'm an absolute sucker for a theme. You could probably build an entire suite of subclasses based on the celestial brush gods alone, but that's just where the journey starts. The actual world of Nippon itself is full of inspirational starting points. Lots of locations, from the Dragon Palace beneath the seas of the Hiroshima coast to the sprawling Seian city, are bursting with story and personality. Many of these locations already have quests attached to them as well, which is perfect for adapting into adventures for your players. Oni Island, for example, requires the aid of the water dragon, so you have to go seek out the water dragon and literally enter it to enlist its aid. That's right, an entire dungeon of the game is just the guts of a dragon. You can probably tell this game was inspired by The Legend of Zelda. Shades of the Water Temple, all about it. And I know, some of you are probably saying, Andrew, that's how video games work. That's just a mission. That's how video games work. And I hear you, you're not wrong. But if you're struggling to think of some new elements to add to your world, I'm simply proposing that if you look at Okami and its story, you can expand your horizons of what is, quote, permissible. After all, what are rules for if not to be broken? At its core, Okami is just an updated Zelda game. That's not a bad thing. That's because Zelda dungeons are also good reference points for Dungeons and Dragons design to today. You thought going to the belly of a dragon was cool? Check this out. You're in a guy, a whole man. Osmosis Jones up in here. Look at this. That's a whole magical virus. That's sick as hell. Same as Darkest Dungeon, Okami is honestly a masterclass in establishing atmosphere and tone. So if you're looking for possible sources of inspiration, I really encourage you to look into its story. I promise you'll walk away with some new ideas for what to include in your campaigns. And this is unrelated to Dungeons and Dragons, but if you ever get a chance to play Okami with motion controls, please do so, because it is so much more fun to literally draw the brush techniques on screen rather than doing so with a joystick. The first time I played it was with a Nintendo Wii, and I know that dates me, but it's too late, we're already here.
Alright, this one is a little out there, so let me explain myself. What makes a good TTRPG setting? A vast open world with plenty to explore, a number of factions for players to fight against or alongside, a bunch of player options to create unique characters that fit the world, and a unified vibe really helps. So hear me out. Warframe. Warframe is a free-to-play sci-fi action multiplayer game set in the distant future. As a player, you take control of the titular Warframes, bodies with signature supernatural abilities utilized by a group called the Ten Tenno. Any more detail on the lore of Warframes themselves, and I would be breaching the player code of not spoiling any discovers one makes while playing through the story. So if you haven't tried Warframe out, I highly recommend it. It is probably the kindest free-to-play experience you can find out there. I've been playing since early access in, 2012, but I'm a founder, and I have my Excalibur Prime to prove it. If you try it, at least get through the second dream to get a good idea of what the game really has in store. It's not for everyone, but it's stuck around because of its unique world and constant updates. There is so much bang for $0. But we're here to talk about what makes it a good setting for a TTRPG. So let's go over each of those pillars I mentioned before. The world. The world of Warframe is our own solar system, set an unknown amount of time in the distant future, to the point that a system-spanning empire, the Orokin, has come and gone. The splintered remnants of the Orokin and the consequences of their terrible experiments are all that remain. And as a Tenno, you can travel the solar system fighting for the good of its inhabitants. It's a recognizable solar system made new by the sheer amount of relics from this future empire, and it's very fun to see what is endured from the old world and was changed completely. And yeah, it's a whole solar system, so plenty of opportunities for exploration, especially in TTRPG form. The factions. Warframe began with 3 main enemy factions, each with their own vibes and domains across the system. The Grineer are cloned soldiers, once utilized by the Orokin, now bent on maintaining control of the systems for their queens. The Corpus are a religious cult that worships literal profit, currency, and utilize their wealth to create mechanical drones to enforce their capitalistic tyranny. The Infested are a hive mind of organisms mutated by the Technocyte virus, flesh hardened into steel with a feral hunger to consume all. More have joined these enemies over the years, but so have factions the Tenno can ally themselves with to have a greater impact on the system and gain unique rewards. If there's something every TTRPG needs, it's enemies to kill and rewards to claim from killing them.
Sweet. Coins.
And it would be a lot of fun to interact with factions beyond the very video gamey ways you do in the game itself, forming friendships and bonds with individual NPCs. The player options. Warframes come in all shapes and flavors, ranging from fire-themed to ninja-themed to pop star surfer-themed. They have it all. With 62 unique Warframes and counting, there's plenty of potential for character abilities. Each frame has a passive and 4 abilities, making them map onto subclasses pretty easily. There's been plenty of people translating Warframes into D&D classes already. I could see a D&D game in the Warframe universe having a unique spin where the players could level several Warframes individually, allowing them to switch up their tactics between a few chosen frames. You could play several classes in the same game, switching them out for each excursion, and you could have player-based progression with the chosen Tenno school, gaining abilities that persist between frames, kind of disconnecting the player from the classes while having your own progression system. It could get a bit complex, but super unique. And that opens up new possibilities for storytelling. What if when your Warframe dies, you have to retrieve it with another frame? Maybe if you take too long, someone like the Corpus scientist Alid V will have stolen it, and it becomes a race against the clock to find it in time. Alid could simply want to auction it off to the highest bidder, but he may instead cannibalize it for parts to use for his dreaded Zanuka project. Now you have a whole new way to motivate your players, because if they don't recover their frames, they may have a tough fight on their hands later. Or you can even throw out Warframes altogether, opting to embody one of the many various citizens of Sol, fighting smaller battles to carve out a life for themselves. Warframe has a wide range of NPCs, each with stories all their own, so the possibilities are truly endless. There's actually a Warframe Starfinder crossover coming soon, so even Digital Extremes acknowledges that Warframe works as a TTRPG setting. And now the people who comment on D&D homebrew videos who say, just play Pathfinder, would be half right. However, the Starfinder crossover is for Warframe 1999, which is kind of like an alternate timeline situation, so there's still room to adapt the main world. Warframe is such a unique blend of inspirations that anyone can find a piece of it that covers their particular niche, and it has infinite possibility to create your own factions, characters, or Warframes to fit into your own adventures in the Sol system. Check out the game, especially if you have 3 friends to play with you, and just feel the inspiration flow. We hope our suggestions help get those creative juices flowing for all you prospective world builders. We know this is quite different from our usual video content, but we're interested in making videos aside from those focused on our own homebrew.
We chose a few worlds that we were partial towards, but there are still so many options out there. We'd be curious to know what worlds you'd like to see translate to Dungeons & Dragons. As stated before, there are plenty of people who have already taken it upon themselves to try and adapt other worlds to 5th edition, and we hope there's more to come.
As always, you can find high quality PDFs of all of our homebrew as well as printable cards on on our Patreon, and you can check them all out on Instagram, alongside all of our regularly posted homebrew content.
Shout out to all of our supporters on Patreon, without whom none of this would be possible. And if you'd like to support us there, you can get access to years of fully illustrated homebrew creations, as well as vote on our monthly curated curios.
That wraps it up for us today. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all again next time.